What happens when the world's biggest savings account suddenly hits zero? We are watching a slow-motion bank run right now. But this is not a run on dollars or euros. It is a run on silver. Right now, a silent heist is happening in the global markets. Roughly 1 billion ounces of silver sitting in exchange-traded funds like SLV and PSLV are being eyed by the G7 governments. Don Durrett just dropped a bombshell warning. He is warning that this inventory is not just going to be sold, it is going to be confiscated to bail out the industrial sector. And when that happens, we are not looking at $60 silver anymore. We are looking at a game over scenario where the price resets to $100, $200, or even $500. But here is the catch, and this is the part that will wreck 90% of investors. Before we get the moonshot, we are going to see a crash. A rigged artificial drop to $20 or $25 that will shake you out of your position exactly 24 hours before the biggest rally in history. If you own physical silver or mining stocks, you need to stop everything and listen closely because the rules of the game just changed. Welcome back. The data we are seeing for late 2025 is absolute insanity. Gold has already smashed through $4,400. The silver deficit is entering its 5th straight year. And yet the mainstream media is silent. Today, we are breaking down the ETF trap that could drop silver by $25 overnight and the invisible tax governments will use instead of confiscation. To understand the future, we must look at the cold, hard numbers of the present. We have had silver supply deficits for 5 years running. In 2024 alone, the global silver deficit reached 215 million ounces. This is not a temporary glitch. It is a structural failure. The world is G7 nations, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Europe have a massive problem. They need silver for strategic reasons that are non-negotiable. It is in every Tomahawk missile. It is in every F-35 fighter jet, and it is the backbone of the entire green energy transition. But there is no metal left in the ground that can be extracted fast enough. So where do they get it? They look at the ETFs. There is roughly 1 billion ounces of silver sitting in warehouses owned by retail investors through vehicles like SLV. Don Durrett's theory is simple but terrifying. The government does not need to seize your jewelry. They can simply buy out the ETF inventory. They print the fiat cash, pay off the ETF holders at the current paper price, and take the physical metal for the industrial and defense complex. This is why the current paper price is a lie. Historically, when governments face a choice between protecting a free market and protecting national security, they choose national security every single time. Look back at Executive Order 6102 in 1933 when gold was confiscated. The precedent is there, the motive is there, and now the deficit is forcing their hand. Why $25? Why would the price of an asset with a massive deficit drop by 50% in a single day? To understand this, you must understand the weapon known as the margin nuke. In the world of paper trading, the exchange has the power to change the rules at any moment. On Friday, December 12, 2025, we saw a preview of this. The exchange raised margin requirements by 50% overnight. This forced traders to either come up with millions in cash or sell their positions immediately. This is how a rigged crash is manufactured. Imagine silver is trading at $90. The big banks and G7 entities place massive iceberg orders. These are hidden limit orders that absorb all buying power without letting the price rise. Then they trigger a flash crash by dumping millions of paper contracts in the quiet hours of the Asian market. The goal is to trigger your stop loss. The goal is to make you believe that the silver bull market is dead. Historically, in 1980, and again in 2011, these margin hikes caused silver to collapse 30 to 50% in a matter of days. If we see a move down to $25 in early 2026, do not look at it as a failure of the asset. Look at it as the final clearing of the board. The mega whales are not selling. They are standing there with deep pockets absorbing every ounce you throw away. They want your physical metal, and they want it at a discount before the real price discovery begins. While the media focuses on paper prices, something happened in South Korea that makes the current price of silver irrelevant. Samsung SDI recently confirmed the specifications for their new solid-state battery production line. This is not just another battery. This is a technology that offers a 900-mile range and 9-minute charging, but the secret ingredient is silver. For the first time in history, silver is not just being used for its conductivity in switches or wires. It is being used as an active material in the electrochemical anode. The Samsung papers suggest a silver loading of 5 grams to 10 grams per kilogram of anode. Let us do the math. A standard electric vehicle battery pack weighs roughly 500 kilograms. If that pack uses solid-state technology, we are talking about 2.5 to 5 kilograms of silver per car. That is 80 to 160 ounces of silver per vehicle. Currently, the entire auto industry uses about 80 million ounces of silver per year. If solid-state batteries become the industry standard for the top 10% of luxury EVs, the demand would exceed 1 billion ounces annually. That is the entire global mining production for 1 year just for one segment of the car industry. This makes the current 100 million ounce deficit look like a rounding error. Samsung is not waiting for the price to drop. They are securing supply now because they know that in a world of solid-state power, silver is no longer a luxury. It is a biological necessity for the machine. We are approaching a moment of total decoupling. For decades, the price of silver has been determined by paper contracts on the COMEX in New York and the LBMA in London. But Don Durrett warns of a lethal trap within the ETF system. There is roughly 1 billion ounces of silver held by funds like SLV and PSLV. Most investors believe they own the metal. They do not. They own a share of a trust that claims to hold the metal. In a national security crisis where the G7 needs silver for chips and missiles, the government can invoke emergency powers. They do not need to send soldiers to your house. They simply call the custodians of these ETFs. They offer a cash settlement. They pay the investors in paper dollars, and they truck the physical bars to defense contractors. Imagine the chaos. 1 billion ounces of supply vanishes from the investment market and enters the industrial pipe overnight. This would trigger a massive paper sell-off as the ETFs liquidate. The spot price on your screen could crash $20 or $30 in hours because the paper market thinks the metal is being dumped. But in the real world, there is zero silver available for purchase. This is the death of paper silver. If you do not hold it in your hand or in a private non-bank vault, you do not own it. You will be left holding a pile of rapidly devaluing fiat currency while the physical price of silver gaps up to $100, $200, and then $500. Many investors think they can hide in mining stocks to avoid the risks of physical storage. This is the second trap. Don Durrett calls it the invisible tax. In the past, governments would simply nationalize a mine. They would send in the military and take over the equipment. But that is messy and bad for PR. Today, they use soft nationalization. It is happening right now in South America and Africa. When the price of silver hits $100, these mining companies will start making astronomical profits. That is when the local government knocks on the door. They do not take the mine. They simply demand a 50% free carried interest, or they raise the royalty fees from 3% to 30%. This effectively steals the margin from you, the shareholder. If you are invested in a single asset miner, a company that owns only one mine in a jurisdiction like Mexico or Peru, you are playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the chamber. In 2026, jurisdiction will matter more than geology. A mediocre mine in a safe jurisdiction like Nevada or Quebec is worth 10 times more than a world-class deposit in a country that is hungry for tax revenue. Durrett warns that if you see the silver price rising, but your mining stocks falling, it is because the invisible tax has already arrived. You must diversify geographically and focus on companies with strong agreements that prevent the state from eating your profits. So, if we are holding until the endgame, what does the final score actually look like? Most people are guessing, but Don Durrett has done the math. Here is the formula you need to memorize. Historically, when gold goes into a mania phase, silver does not just follow, it overtakes. Right now, the gold to silver ratio is sitting near 65. That means it takes 65 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. But look at the history books. In 1980, that ratio dropped to 17. In 2011, it dropped to 30. Durrett's model for 2026 is conservative. He predicts gold will hit $5,000. If the ratio just goes back to a normal bull market level of 50, that puts silver at $100. But we are not in a normal market. We are in a silver shortage driven by Samsung and the G7. If the ratio drops to 30 like it did in 2011, we are looking at $166 silver. And remember, that is just the metal. If the metal goes to 166, the mining stocks with leverage are not going up 3 times. They are going up 30 times. This is the asymmetric bet of the decade. But here's the most important rule. Do not touch the sell button until gold hits $5,000. Not $4,500, not $4,900. 5,000 is the psychological and mathematical signal that the cycle has matured. Until you see $5,000 gold on your screen, the silver snapback is still in play. This brings us to the single biggest mistake you are about to make. We are early in the cycle, but when your mining stock doubles or triples, human nature will kick in. You will want to sell to lock in the win. Don Durrett calls this the Peter Lynch regret. Lynch, the greatest investor of all time, said his biggest failure was selling winners too early. Durrett is currently sitting on a stock that is a 30-bagger. It is up 30 times his investment, and he has not sold a single share. Why? Because he understands the difference between price and value. The year 2026 is going to rewrite the history books for silver. We have the ETF trap, the invisible tax on miners, and the $5,000 gold signal. The game is being rigged to make you sell. The $25 crash is designed to scare you. The mainstream media silence is designed to keep you ignorant. But the physics of the solid-state battery and the reality of the G7 deficit cannot be ignored forever. In a world of digital illusions, physical scarcity is the only truth. I'm going to be tracking every move the G7 makes on those silver stockpiles. If you want to know the exact moment the ETFs start draining their vaults, make sure you are subscribed. Stay strong, stay stacked, and do not let them shake you out of the greatest wealth transfer in history.